Hello again, friends. This is Dawn Boyani Sandberg from BuddhistSomatics.com, and today I'd like to talk about Polyvagal Theory and anxiety. As most of you know who've been following me for a while, I've personally battled with pretty debilitating anxiety through my life, through different trauma issues, and consider myself a survivor of anxiety that has actually taken me down for a few months at a time. And I learned about Dr. Stephen Porges's theory called Polyvagal Theory, and to me it's one of the most profound and easy to assimilate systems of understanding how our nervous system works and how to regulate and what's really happening with us if we have anxiety. And as I've said before, I mean, with all the stuff that we're going through socially with climate change and the inception of this war and shootings, I mean, it's really, really hard for us all to be in the world right now and to keep an open heart, to stay clear, to stay grounded. I mean, as Al Gore said once, every time I turn on the news, it's like opening up a book from the page of Revelation. So that's kind of the world we're living in right now. It seems like kind of apocalyptic. The Indo-Tibetan tradition calls it the Kali Yuga, like the time of destruction. So we're in, dire straits, and anyone that's a little bit energy sensitive, or if you've had previous trauma, which I think all of us have had, we might be prone to having anxiety attacks or panic attacks, insomnia, feeling of flutteriness, and just a feeling of not being, at our best. It's a really hard time right now. So I think understanding what's happening and also understanding our nervous system has been one of the most profound sort of pieces of wisdom that I'd like to share with you. So basically, with polyvagal theory, you've got your autonomic nervous system, and that means your nervous system kind of acts on its own. It's automatic. It regulates blood, your heartbeat, your breathing, respiration. So your nervous system is sort of what keeps you alive, and it acts on its own. It doesn't have to do anything, and it has basically two different stages. It either has a parasympathetic stage or a sympathetic. And the polyvagal theory by Dr. Stephen Porges, it's kind of not exactly proven science right now, but being a Dharma practitioner, the way that he explains what I'm about to tell you is so incredibly pith and profound that it helps me a lot to understand what's happening with me as I go through the day. So basically, your nervous system, there's this vagus nerve that goes behind your ear and then down through your spine and into your stomach. It's a very, very large nerve in the body. That's your vagus nerve. So it kind of communicates to your mind, your body, your endocrine system, how safe the world is, so what's happening with you. It happens automatically. It's not necessarily a thought process. It's this kind of operating system that's always listening to sense perceptions and telling us about the level of safety in our environment. So when your body is in your parasympathetic nervous system, that's also called the ventral vagal, and that's when everything feels good. You actually feel like the world is safe. The world is safe for you to operate in. You're feeling good about yourself, and the common notion, which I'm sure you guys have heard 1,000 times, is out in nature. If you have like an elk out in nature, and that elk is sitting there and eating the grass and able to rest and digest, and there's no apparent triggers. So there's chemicals that come with that, like oxytocin and serotonin, and everything feels good. You're feeling supported by your world. You're feeling that there's no impending danger. So, it's a joyful, natural state of existence. But then what happens if a predator comes? So a mountain lion comes to the elk, then all of a sudden you get a surge of energy So your adrenals go cortisol, you get a rush of energy. So that elk now has gone into the sympathetic nervous system, and you are able to run away from your predator. So that actually, it's a survival mechanism. When you go into fight or flight, as everyone knows, that's actually to protect you in the wild so that you can run and get a surge of energy to get away. So that's your sympathetic nervous system. You've had some type of traumatic jolt, and the adrenals are running, and you feel fearful. And so, but once you get back into safety, that elk, okay, he's gotten away from the mountain lion and everything's okay again, he goes back to eating. So then he goes back into the parasympathetic nervous system. So you kind of go in and out of those two. And then the third stage of the polyvagal theory is called the dorsal vagal. So in the unlikely event that the elk would get caught by the mountain lion and about to be eaten, you actually there's another flood of chemicals that come, and you actually just give up and you sort of dissociate and become ready to be eaten and die. So that's the third stage of our nervous system, where we actually just go into shock. And that's actually to protect you. It's like what happens if you get eaten out in nature. There's like a built-in protective mechanism that allows you to go into this sort of dissociated state. You get flooded with kind of these endorphins, and you sort of check out and get ready to die. So those are the three stages of your nervous system. And then for myself, how that relates to me directly as a Buddhist practitioner is I've spent a lot of time meditating and doing deep breath work and learning a lot of Dharma. And this system of understanding the polyvagal theory is to me like pure Dharma. And in fact, I've included a few different worksheets that you guys can download. It's really fun to talk about, to actually just print it out and do it. You'd be surprised on how incredibly profound this body of teachings is by Dr. Porges. You can write down, well, when in your life do you ever know that you're in your parasympathetic nervous system? When do things feel safe? When do people feel safe? When do you notice that type of like adrenal response where you're kind of frightened, reactive, and kind of revved up? When have you gone into your sympathetic? And then when do you just check out? Like, you're on Facebook or Instagram, or, that's the basis of addiction or dissociation. When your nervous system's overloaded and you're kind of in this sort of checked out, stony, state. A lot of people live there who have trauma responses. So when I wrote down, I had one counselor friend, he had me write down, when are you in those three states? And I realized, being a trauma survivor, even as a Buddhist practitioner, I had been living pretty much in my sympathetic nervous system. I was always kind of on edge and ready to react. Even after 30 years of Dharma practice, I was like, wow, I actually hold in my nervous system, in my body, of feeling energetically that I'm scared all the time. Like, oh my God, I'm not going to do well with my business, or my husband doesn't love me, or or someone's looking at me kind of funny. Like there's always some stressor in the world that you're going to be reacting to. So you can become mercurial and very reactive emotionally, very defensive. So Dr. Porges talks about with the polyvagal theory, perceived safety in relations. So if you're in fight or flight or PTSD, or you're kind of revved up in your sympathetic nervous system, you begin to see everyone as a person that's going to harm you or attack you, and you become hardened and defensive. So you have this kind of personality that's very reactive. You can also have people who are involved with addiction, alcoholism, media addiction. That's a big one right now. We're all just we can't handle the war in Palestine and Israel, so we're just going to check out and spend half the day on Facebook getting endorphin bumps from people that like some dumb thing that we posted. So we spend our lives using media basically as a drug, and that is not really, it feels kind of like you're parasympathetic because there's some similar hormones and chemicals that come when you're in this drugged stony oblivion, but it's not really living. It's not healthy for your nervous system. It's not really flourishing. Um, it's living like a lot of us do in this sort of checked out, dissociated, media infused on our phones. It's like basically alcoholism or drug addiction. So that's not really our highest way of functioning and our highest good, where we connect with each other, have healthy, safe relationships, and flourish. So the invitation is to kind of, be really tempered and kind of have your thumb on the pulse at every moment. Like, where is my nervous system at? So I've done a lot of work with yoga and meditation and breath work. So this system, at every moment where I'm just sitting at my desk or I'm walking, I'm always kind of like tempering myself and looking, oh, do I feel this flutteriness inside? Does my world feel safe? Do my relationships feel safe? Do I feel good about myself and my life? And if so, then I know, oh, I'm in my parasympathetic nervous system. So that's called the ventral vagal. And so the ventral vagal is, that's your rest and digest, happy chemicals. You feel good about yourself. You see others as being helpers and kind, and it's much more healthy to stay in your parasympathetic nervous system as your baseline. However, that's an ideal world in times where there is a lot of stress. There are difficult things with economic things, climate change, all the things that we just talked about. A lot of us now are just living all of the time pretty much in the sympathetic, because the world is really, really scary, and we can't be in such privilege that, that we can, believe that we're not going to be scathed by all the things that are happening right in the world. So it's actually intelligent to have a little bit of healthy fear and to have our nervous system be aware of all of these dangers, politically, socially, environmentally, economically, politically. There's a lot of factors right now that are really, really difficult to contend with. So it's very important for us to understand this system, to make a partnership with our body, our mind, our thought process, and our nervous system, and to do the best we can to have a self-nurturing, self-care in times that are very difficult. I know a lot of my friends, I can count about 6 of them, including myself, have at times had, debilitating anxiety, like to the point where you can't go to the house, you can't sleep. The nervous system has gone into a dysregulation cycle. In fact, I have a friend right now that's going through that, and he's really, really struggling with it, and we're working together. And I offer professional coaching for folks that are in this kind of repetition cycle where the nervous system just can't get situated. And there are a number of things that we can do. What I've noticed, once you've gone into a dysregulated nervous system, you really can't think your way out of it. Affirmations and thought process and understanding won't get you out of it, because once something gets dislodged and anxiety is like operating in your body, your nervous system is telling your body, your mind, your endocrine system, the world is not safe. I can't sleep well. I'm just going to stay in this dysregulated state. What it's important to understand is when that happens, our nervous system is actually trying to help us. It's trying to keep us safe. So it's actually having a huge amount of anxiety and adrenaline to give you the strength to get through what's difficult. It could be past trauma. It could be something, with our biochemistry, GABA levels, vitamin D levels. We don't eat that well these days, so we're missing a lot of minerals, nutrients, sunshine. So a lot of factors can cause the nervous system to dysregulate. It doesn't necessarily mean, deep childhood or relational trauma. It could just be a number of reasons. So my friends that are going, I have about 6 people in my life right now that are in debilitating anxiety. And I wanted to offer one of the first things that I learned, and I spoke about this in a previous video, is a dysregulated nervous system that's in fight or flight is not mental illness. And so I want to say that again. According to Dr. Stephen Porges, anxiety is not mental illness. And a lot of the times we'll go to the doctor and they'll be like, oh, we'll just put you on anti-anxiety pills or antidepressants. And now, again, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm just a health coach and a person that's a survivor from a lot of stuff that's happened in my life. But it's a lot of doctors aren't aware of this, especially people who aren't experts, that if you're already in a revved up, if your sympathetic nervous system is revved up and you're in fight or flight, if you take an antidepressant, a lot of that serotonin will actually make you more hypervigilant and more kind of lit and can exacerbate anxiety. So it's really, in my experience, any doctor that tries to give antidepressants for anxiety or for dysregulated nervous system, sometimes it can go the wrong way. So please be careful of that and be educated. Read the blogs about medical records as to what will happen if you take antidepressants when you're in a hypervigilant state. It can make things much worse. And just in general, like big pharma, I mean, a lot of the times you go in and you're scared and they just throw pills at you. A couple of times I would have to do a course of sleeping pills just to reset the nervous system, and then I would just taper off. And in emergency situations where it's really, really dug in, the fear, the anxiety, the insomnia, the shakiness, a judicial course of an anti-anxiety pill can sometimes help in extreme situations. But again, check with your doctor. I don't want to offer any medical advice in any way. I'm just talking as a peer support as to what's been helpful for me. But one of the things that I found to be most helpful for my friends I'd like to offer you is to work with a integrative or functional medicine doctor when this happens, and kind of almost create an entire care environment for yourself. If you can take some time off from having too many responsibilities in the event that you're in a serious anxiety-ridden state, just try to simplify your life and create a mandala of self-care. I believe, and I've had this happen to me 3 times in my life through different factors where my whole nervous system would calm down. I would be riddled with anxiety, insomnia, fear, and almost not able to function. Especially if you're not sleeping well, then a couple of nights of not sleeping well, it's not even safe to drive anymore. It's like it can get pretty bad pretty quick. So my heart to anybody who has gone through debilitating anxiety, please know from Dr. Stephen Porges, it is not mental illness. It is, you're sensitive, you care, and a number of factors can jolt you into an anxiety-ridden state. The Tibetan Buddhists call it lung, L-U-N-G, which means wind. It's a wind imbalance. And I think in Chinese medicine they also talk about internal winds and stuff like that. You can just get kicked up and you can go into a fear-based state. So, but that can be, the good news is sans pharmaceuticals, through integrative medicine or functional medicine, they have a lot of different supplements and a holistic approach to offer to you. So if you can, first, as I said, first simplify your life, and then make sure that you're eating really well, eat nutrient-dense foods. If you eat meat, bone broth is invaluable, good quality of bone broth. You can go to a Vietnamese restaurant and get pho, because that is that aged bone broth. If not, you can use things like coconut oil, things that are oily and grounding with some spices in them, like cardamom, nutmeg. Things with oils and spices kind of ground you. If you eat meat, well-sourced meat, like grass-fed beef can ground you. Things that are kind of heavy, oily, and grounding, kind of ground your nervous system and kind of lubricate the neuroreceptors. So oils and healthy fats are actually good for you when you're having anxiety. Make sure that you get sunlight, especially in the morning, like right when you wake up. Make sure that you, even if you just look out the window, go for a walk or open the window and have bright light come directly into your eyes. That actually helps with your whole endocrine system to set your melatonin, and that helps to regulate your nervous system and your sleep cycles. Um, Supplements, there are some things that I've taken over the years, and I've written about that, but I can write about it again. You can buy Rescue Remedy, and they have pastilles that you can go into your body very quickly, or a tincture under the tongue. Pharma GABA, which is not gabapentin, it's actually GABA, and that works on your receptors that have to do with calmness and fear responses. Inositol is it's a form of sugar that actually acts as a supplement. Make sure you have a lot of different amino acids, L-theanine. So there's a whole entire panel of things that a functional medicine doctor or integrative medicine doctor can help you to get out of this difficult time and support you. Environmental things, make sure that you keep your home very clean, nice music. You can turn off the news until you get strong again. There's no reason, if you're already in fight or flight, to just be watching news. I shut down social media, and in fact I completely shut down Facebook in February of this year. I don't go on there anymore. I was checking it for like a few hours per day, and my whole self-esteem and self-worth became metered by internet likes, and I would get hurt if no one liked something, and I felt really puffed up if something didn't like. I don't want to buy that into that game of this whole thing right now where our self-worth, our self-esteem, our feeling of being loved is metered by this social media. I think that actually can create anxiety. So, a huge amount of self-care, deep breathing and the abdominal breathing is really good. Warm Epsom salts baths are really good. So I can write up everything that I've done. I think I have a few different blog posts about how to come back into regulation after you've been in acute anxiety. And I'm living proof, once again, that, right now, as of today, even with all this stuff that's happening socially, I feel like a core of being grounded and being clear and being open and strong to be able to deal with this stuff. I do still meter how much social media I'm on, like no more than 20 minutes a day, and then also no more than 20 minutes a day of news. And it's also suggested to read the news. I have like the New York Times and CNN, 5 things. I get daily notifications in my email that has some of the top news stories. So I'm really aware of what's happening, but without hours and hours a day, because our nervous systems aren't designed to process the karma of the whole planet and every disaster that human beings go through. We're just one person. It's any of my friends, these 6 friends that are having anxiety right now, I hear you. I'm with you, and I understand. We're in really, really dark times, and our nervous systems are having to process the karma of so much that we need a huge amount of self-care and patience and nurturing to have the strength to get through this time right now. So if you're having acute anxiety, I would once again download those documents that I'm sending in this article, and actually just take a moment, even if you think you know this, and just write down the times of when you're in your ventral vagal, your parasympathetic nervous system, when you're in your sympathetic, when you feel like you're in fight or flight, and then write down, hey, when am I totally checked out and dissociated? So you can learn by writing that down what gets you into those, when are you there, and what would trigger you to go into fight or flight. So part of the system is called triggers, and then there's another one that you've heard of called glimmers. So glimmers are the opposite of triggers. Triggers are like what gets you into fight or flight, and then glimmers, what moments of bliss and goodness actually make you understand and feel that the world is good again. Glimmers would be I take a walk out in nature, I look at the sun, I pet my cat, or I take my dog for a walk. These are things that actually help me to regulate and are telling my nervous system, because a lot of this is nonverbal, that the world is good and safe. So you can also write down your glimmers. And then, there's a whole entire body of polyvagal theory that talks about relational issues. Who is safe? Who do we perceive as safe? So making assessments as to what type of relationships we have. So there's a whole relational component. And I'd like to talk about that later on. I'm actually studying some of this right now, so I'll keep you guys abreast of whatever I learn. And I really appreciate you listening. And any friend that has been battling with anxiety in their life, please do take a moment and learn Polyvagal Theory by Dr. Stephen Porges. It's invaluable. To me, it's pure Dharma. Everything that I ever done as a Tibetan Buddhist, I believe, was always to get me into the parasympathetic nervous system and feel a sense of wellness, and the happy chemicals come. So all of my breath work and tantric work and all that stuff was always to get you into the parasympathetic and strengthen your nervous system. So now I understand it the way that modern science and modern theory are explaining it. So it's invaluable, and it's not mental illness if you have anxiety and your system's gotten revved up, even if it's been going on for a while, a week, months, or all of your life. There is a way out. We can, through different self-care methods, come back into the parasympathetic nervous system and feel a sense of strength and well-being even in these dark times. So my heart and well wishes to everyone. And again, thank you for listening to my experience and understanding of polyvagal theory.